Good morning.
Good morning.
Another awesome history nugget. So on your programs, you see the Honorable Member of the U.S. House of Representatives, Robert Smalls. Does anybody know about Robert Smalls? Well, you will this morning. So, Robert Smalls was a slave that was born April 5th, 1839. He had his mother, Lida Polite, and there's no recollection of his father. He was enslaved by Henry McKee on a plantation and a mansion in Beaufort, South Carolina. But there's a key person I want you to remember. That's her name is Harriet Buss. At the age of 12, Henry McKee would separate Smalls and his mother and sent him on a contract to work in Charleston, South Carolina. Smalls worked as a waiter in a hotel and eventually worked at the docks there in Charleston. Smalls would eventually meet and marry Hannah Jones, who was also an enslaved woman, but was a hotel maid. And he would marry at age 17. Now, kicking off a couple more years from that, the Civil War breaks out. During the Civil War, Smalls was an enslaved crew member of a Confederate transport ship along with other enslaved members on the ship called the Planter. Smalls worked his way into being a pilot of the ship, learned signals, codes to move his ship throughout the South. Smalls at the age of 23 decided, while unattended, as his slave masters and owners of the ship were sleeping, to talk and plan with the other slaves in taking the ship. They made plans to steal the ship, the Planter, and pick up their loved ones and try to flee to safety. They worked out a plan around 3 a.m. and went to pick up their loved ones, and they set sail. Well, they really did set sail on the steamboat, so they just started climbing along. So as they were going through, he actually had the plan of putting on a coat, had a pipe, and put on a captain's hat, and worked his way to two of the hardest fortified forts and armed areas in the South at the time, which was Fort Sumter and Fort Montgomery. So at this point, you had other ironclad ships and other battleships that were on patrol, but he knew all the codes to maneuver through all the sections. They eventually make it up to the U.S. Navy the black naval captain uniform that they saw was of him getting his boat to the blockade in peace with all his loved ones and family. It is said that the Navy captains at the time were shocked to see a black naval captain with all these slaves with no bullet holes, and yet smart enough to make it there unharmed with no deaths. Smalls provided intelligence to the U.S. Navy on Confederate operations around Charleston Harbor. Smalls would go on missions with the U.S. Navy as a pilot throughout the war. He only had one defeat where he was injured, and he took the U.S. Keokuk. Smalls would be promoted to captain with his own ship, the Planter. He was honored to take his ship to Philadelphia to be fitted for war. Robert Smalls will be the first African-American Navy captain to command and serve a U.S. Navy ship. He fought 17 battles in his whole career and never got paid for his rank.
All right.
After the war in 1864, Smalls took his prize money for capturing the Planter and went home to his old master's mansion and bought it out at auction.
Amen.
Since his old master couldn't pay the taxes on it, he just took over it.
All right.
At this time, he was known as a leader and a hero of his people. Smalls started making political connections along the way. Later in 1864, Smalls would start his political career in Philadelphia, where he would get his bitter taste of reality by being arrested for riding on a segregated streetcar. Smalls used the arrest to start a protest that desegregated the Philadelphia transit system in 1867.
Wow.
Smalls served as a delegate to the Republican National Convention throughout the Reconstruction of South Carolina and the South. Smalls went into business with Richard Gleaves to open a store just for free men. He was an advocate for public education and also for himself as a free man. In 1872, Smalls was elected to the state senate by South Carolina. The citizens of Beaufort elected Smalls to serve the United States Congress. Smalls served 5 terms in the House of Representatives from 1875 to 1887. Smalls was a member of the Beaufort Historical First African Baptist Churches in South Carolina. Because of Smalls' leadership, many former slaves were able to purchase land and build homes in Beaufort, South Carolina. In 1877, Smalls would be arrested again, accused of taking a $5,000 bribe. No evidence was found in a fight against a Democrat, Jim Crow in the making, George D. Hilbert. Smalls still won the election to keep his seat, but in 1878, with the white supremacists threatening him and other black politicians, Smalls contested the election on the grounds of black discrimination and slavery. Smalls was cleared by the governor in 1879. Robert Smalls died of diabetes and malaria on February 23rd, 1915. One of his great quotes, "My race needs no special defense, for the past history of them in this country proves them to be equal of everyone. All they need is an equal chance in battle of life." As things went on with him, a lot of his legacies and things are still prominent today. One of the key things that has been a legacy in Beaufort is always honoring in his birthday, and also where his home is actually a historical marker and a state marker. In 1897, the U.S. finally granted him pay for his rank as a captain, which is an 06, of $30. I can tell you now, if he was a captain now, he'd be making over $8,000 a month if he was retired. In 1997, the University of South Carolina started a lecture series of Smalls' behalf. In 2007, the U.S. Army named a first commissioned ship after Major General Robert Smalls. In the Army, they promoted him to Major General, as the Navy kept him as a captain. Now, the one person that I told you to remember was Harriet Buss. Harriet Buss is a white Baptist woman, former teacher of Robert Smalls. Buss saw herself sharing a mission with her students, who are all Negro. The goal to help empower the next generation of black teachers, ministers through education. And when Robert Smalls got to Congress, she was proud of him. And she had quoted, "The longer I am engaged in this work, the more I find to convince me that the great masses of this people are to reach and elevated by the efforts of well-trained theologians and teachers of their own race." And she's from Boston. She was only 26 years old when she said that. In the South, educating black people before the war. That's what's called ally. In the fight. So we must know how to be allies for our own, embrace the allies who are willing to go in the fight with us.
Yes.
So then when the education and nuggets are planted, seeds will grow. Thank you.
That's good.
We certainly want to thank our young people, and we want to thank